Welcome to Bloodthirsty Forest, where the line between truth and nightmare is almost invisible. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe and turn on the bell, because some stories might find you first. It happened in late October of 2024, in a place almost nobody knew existed, a backroad town called Hallworth, buried somewhere deep in the forests of Oregon. I know that sounds like the beginning of some campfire tale, but believe me when I say, nothing about what happened to me was just a story. I was only passing through, driving back from Portland after attending my uncle's funeral. I took a detour. GPS said it would cut the drive by 2 hours. The road was barely paved, twisting, trees leaning in like they wanted to whisper. And then, my car died. Just like that, no warning, full tank, no cell service. I sat there cursing under my breath, trying to turn the key again and again until I noticed something ahead through the windshield. A house. Old. 2 stories. Victorian style. Lights on. Faint music playing. Something that looked warm. I grabbed my flashlight and made my way toward it. The closer I got, the more I noticed the strange things. The ground felt spongy, the air too still, and the music, it wasn't coming from speakers. It was like a humming, human almost. I knocked on the front door, no answer. I turned the knob, it opened. The air inside was warm, but thick, like walking into a room where someone had just cried for hours. The wallpaper was peeling, the furniture dusty, but everything was in place, neat, preserved. A fire crackled in the living room fireplace, even though I saw no smoke from the chimney. "Hello," I called, my voice sounded way small. That's when I saw her, an old woman sitting in a rocking chair by the fire. Her skin looked waxy, her hair in perfect curls, and her eyes, wide open. But she didn't blink, didn't move. I stepped closer. "Ma'am, my car broke down. Do you have a phone I could use?" She didn't answer. I walked around her. That's when I noticed she wasn't breathing. She was dead, but the rocking chair was still moving, and the humming hadn't stopped. Backed away slowly, tried the front door, locked. I swear I didn't lock it. I looked out the window and froze. My car was gone. The trees outside were wrong. They were moving, not in the wind, but turning toward the house like growing limbs. I ran to the kitchen. No phone. Just a rotary dial set melted into the wall. Food still warm on the table. A plate of untouched roast beef and peas. A glass of milk half finished. A fork slowly tipping off the table, as if someone had just left seconds ago. Then I heard footsteps upstairs. I called out again. No answer. But the humming was louder. I made my way up the creaking staircase. The hallway was lined with old portraits. One caught my eye. It was me, standing in front of the house, but I had never been here before. The final room at the end of the hallway had no door, just a heavy curtain. I pulled it aside and walked in. The room was filled with mirrors, old, cracked, every wall, even the ceiling. I looked around, but my reflection was wrong. Each version of me moved slightly out of sync. One tilted its head, one had no eyes, one grinned. I turned to leave, but the curtain was gone. The door had vanished, and the humming was now whispering. All the mirrors went dark except one. From behind the glass, something stepped out. It wore, and some more. That was just the first of 10 true stories uncovered in 2024, and we're only getting started. If you made it this far, don't forget to subscribe to Bloodthirsty Forest, because you never know which story might become your own. New nightmares every week. Turn on the bell and stay in the dark. Story 2, The Dog That Knocked. It started with a knock at the door. That's what my friend Andy told me when he came back from his uncle's cabin up near the Montana-Canada border. I didn't believe him at first. Andy's always been the type to drink a little too much and exaggerate a little too often. But this story, he didn't laugh, didn't smirk. He didn't even blink much while telling it. He'd taken a solo trip to his late uncle's remote property, a worn-down cabin with no cell signal, surrounded by dense forest and nothing else for miles. He brought enough supplies for a few days, food, whiskey, books, a shortwave radio. His plan was to write. Just be alone for a bit. That first night was uneventful, cold, quiet, but peaceful. The second night changed everything. Wait, the first knock. It came around 1:12 a.m., a knock, soft, measured. Andy was in bed, half asleep, thinking it might have been an animal bumping into the porch, but then it knocked again, slower this time. 3 knocks, almost polite. He grabbed his flashlight, crept to the front door, and peeked through the warped window beside it. Nothing, just fog, darkness, still forest. He opened the door a crack, light trembling in his hand. Still nothing. But then he heard it. A scratching sounded at the back door. He rushed around the cabin, but again, no one. Just more fog. It was so thick now he couldn't even see the edge of the porch. He locked the doors and tried to go back to sleep. He said he almost convinced himself it was just his imagination, until the third knock came. This time it came with a voice. Wait, the voice. It sounded like a child, whispering from behind the door. "Can you let him in? He's been so cold for so long." Andy froze. He said he didn't remember walking backwards, but he found himself in the kitchen with the light off, crouched, holding a knife. He sat there until morning. Nothing else happened that night. But the footprints started the next day. Wait, the tracks. The ground outside was damp with morning dew, soft enough to leave impressions. Andy spotted them as soon as he stepped out for firewood. Paw prints massive, like a wolf, but wrong. The toes were too long, and instead of 4 pads, there were 5, almost like a hand, attached to a paw. They led from the tree line to the front porch, then around back, then under the house. He checked the crawl space. Nothing, just cobwebs and the scent of rot. But when he returned inside, every window was unlocked. Andy swore he'd locked them all. The face in the window. That night, the knocking didn't come. But the sound of something pacing outside did. Heavy steps circling again and again. He turned off all the lights and peered through the blinds. For a second, he saw it. A face just barely above the ground, pressed against the glass like a dog trying to look in, but shaped too human. He shut the curtain and didn't look again. Until the power went out. Wait, candlelight. Andy lit a single candle and sat by the fireplace, knife in hand. He said the silence was unbearable, like the house itself was listening. Around 2 a.m., the knocking came back. But this time, it was at every wall, simultaneously, as if the house was surrounded. Then the voice again, from right behind the door. "Please, let him in. He won't bite unless you run." Andy didn't sleep, didn't move, just waited until morning. When the sun finally rose and the fog lifted, he packed everything into his car and never looked back. He swore the last thing he saw in the side mirror as he pulled away was a long black dog, sitting on the porch, watching him leave. Wait, one last thing. 2 weeks later, after he got home, he found muddy paw prints outside his apartment door, on the 5th floor. He doesn't live near woods. He doesn't have a dog. Wait. Enjoying these terrifying true stories? Then subscribe to Bloodthirsty Forest and hit that bell icon, because the next story might already be looking for you. 1 new horror every week. Stay dark, stay scared. Story 3, The Girl in the Fog Tunnel. Wait, there's a train tunnel in southern Germany near the edge of the Black Forest. Officially, it's listed as abandoned, sealed off in 1982 after a landslide destroyed part of the tracks. No maintenance, no access, just a rusting gate and warning signs in 3 languages. But in June of 2024, 2 urban explorers, Lucas and Milo, ignored those signs. They were YouTubers from Berlin, looking to document haunted or off-limits locations. Lucas had read about the Clarenbrook Tunnel on a forgotten internet forum, where someone claimed they'd heard voices inside, even though no one had been in there for decades. Naturally, they brought cameras, but what they captured never made it online, because only one of them came back. Wait, entering the dark. They parked about half a mile from the old railway path. Fog had started rolling in as they approached the tunnel entrance, a thick, low mist that felt almost alive. Lucas later told investigators the air felt magnetic, like it was pulling them in. The tunnel entrance was chained shut, but Milo found a small gap near the side where erosion had opened a crawl space. At 9:14 p.m., they slipped inside. Lucas was filming with a GoPro. The first 30 minutes of footage were boring, just wet rock, crumbling support beams, echoes of dripping water. But then, they heard it. Footsteps. Wait, the first sighting. They paused, listened. The sound came from behind them even though no one had followed. Then ahead, just past the edge of their flashlight beams, they saw a figure. A girl. She looked maybe 12 years old, dressed in a tattered white dress, barefoot, standing motionless in the dark. At first they thought it was a prank, another explorer, but when Milo called out to her, she didn't respond. She only tilted her head, slowly, and walked into the wall, not through a doorway, not around a bend, into the stone wall. She vanished. Wait, camera footage. Lucas later handed in the SD card to the authorities. In the footage, as the girl turns, you can see her face isn't right. Her eyes reflect light like an animal's, and her smile is too wide, almost ear to ear. Frame by frame, they watched her blur as she touched the wall, like static crawling over her skin. After that moment, the sound on the camera began to distort. Voices, backward whispers, and a humming, low and mechanical. Then Milo says, "Did you hear that?" And the screen goes black. Milo disappears. Lucas claimed the flashlight in his hand flickered out, leaving them in total darkness. He grabbed for Milo, but he was gone. No scream, no sound of footsteps, just silence. He ran, followed the wall, feeling for the exit. The deeper he went, the louder the humming became, until it wasn't just humming anymore. It was breathing. Wait, outside again. Lucas burst out of the tunnel just before midnight. He was soaked, bleeding from one ear, and he couldn't speak for hours. When police arrived, they searched the entire tunnel. Nothing. No sign of Milo. No tracks. No signs of a cave-in. But one strange thing was found. At exactly 45 meters into the tunnel, etched into the wall in perfect cursive script, was Milo's full name. Milo J. Hartman, June 13, 2024. Beneath it, a child's handprint, fresh. Wait, the follow-up. 2 weeks later, Lucas was found in his apartment. Dehydrated, catatonic. The words he kept whispering were, "She followed me out. She doesn't like cameras. She's inside the footage." Police confiscated the GoPro card. 3 officers who reviewed it requested reassignment. One of them later told a journalist, "There's a frame right before it cuts out. You can pause it and see her. She's not behind them. She's filming." Story 4. The Apartment 7C Tapes. In November 2024, a series of security camera clips were anonymously uploaded to a private forum for urban paranormal investigators. The account that posted them was deleted within 2 hours. The videos were titled simply 7C Entry 01.mp4, 7C Mirror 3.mp4, and 7C Final.mp4. There were no descriptions, no location metadata, only the date embedded in the footage, October 29, 31, 2024. What makes them terrifying isn't just what they show. It's that Apartment 7C has been officially empty since 2019. Background. Apartment 7C is part of a crumbling, low-rent complex in Queens, New York. The tenant, an elderly woman named Grace Milford, was found deceased inside the unit in July 2019. Autopsy report, natural causes. But police noted something strange. All the mirrors in the apartment had been covered in thick black paint. From the inside, there were also 2 chairs in front of each mirror, facing them. After her death, the apartment was cleared and left vacant due to structural issues. Or so the building manager claimed. In truth, the door had been welded shut, until someone somehow got inside. The first video, Entry 01.mp4, is grainy night vision footage, captured from a fixed corner camera inside the apartment. The timestamp reads OST 29, 2024, 10:17 p.m. At first it's empty. Then the door opens. A man steps in, mid-30s, wearing a hoodie, carrying a camcorder. He walks through the dark, whispering to himself. "It's colder in here, no heat, but it's colder." She said the mirrors were still up. He passes a doorway where one of the chairs is still visible, facing a wall-sized mirror. He doesn't notice it, but the video catches a brief flicker in the glass, a handprint. From the inside. The second video, 7C Mirror 03.mp4, begins in the hallway. The man is seated now, facing a mirror. The lights flicker. He starts reading from a note. "Grace said you knock 3 times, and then she comes." He knocks. Nothing.
He knocks again.
On the third knock, the audio warps. like an old VHS glitch. The mirror begins to shimmer, not reflect but ripple, like water. And then something moves behind the glass. A face. Not his. A woman, pale, wet, eyes missing, smiling. The man jumps up, knocking the chair over. The mirror cracks slightly at the center. In the background, a second mirror, one the camera hadn't focused on before, now shows two people in the room. But only one is physically there. The third video. 7C final.mp4 is silent. No ambient noise. No color. Pure black and white security footage. Timestamp October 31st, 2024, 3:33 a.m. The camera faces the bedroom, but it's empty. Then static. Then, the mirror rotates slowly on its own axis. Inside it, the man appears again. He's now shirtless, covered in bruises and scratches, eyes wide, mouth moving. But the audio is still muted. At 3:34 a.m., he turns toward the camera and opens his mouth unnaturally wide. His jaw doesn't stop. He walks backward into the mirror and disappears. The video ends with a single frame held for 1 second. A close-up of the mirror. You can see yourself in it, but your reflection smiles too early. Wait, aftermath. Investigators tried to verify the origin of the footage. IP tracing failed. The building complex it allegedly belonged to burned down in early December, only weeks after the videos surfaced. Fire department said it was faulty wiring, but no other unit was affected. Only apartment 7C. And here's the strangest part. No fire damage was ever found inside 7C, only soot on the mirrors from the inside. Wait. Still with us? Then you're the kind of person we love having here. Subscribe to Bloodthirsty Forest and join us every week for the most chilling stories ever unearthed. Hit that bell, stay brave, and remember, some mirrors never stop reflecting. Story 5. Voicemail from the Attic. In the quiet suburb of Masonville, Ohio, a family moved into an old Victorian-style house in early September 2024. The couple, Jared and Fiona, had recently had their first child and were seeking a peaceful home to raise him. The listing was a steal, below market price, large yard, newly remodeled kitchen. Only one detail stood out. The attic was sealed shut. When they asked the realtor, she said the previous owners had it locked due to insulation issues. The couple shrugged it off. That was until the voicemail came. The first call. It was a stormy evening, October 17th. Jared's phone rang at 11:42 p.m. Unknown number, no voicemail. At 11:44 p.m. it rang again. Still unknown. The third time it left a voicemail. Jared played it on speaker. There was no voice, just scraping. A slow rhythmic sound like wood dragging across wood. And then a faint whisper. Don't let them take me back. Jared and Fiona were rattled but assumed it was spam, until the baby monitor started picking up the same whisper. The attic hatch. The next morning, Jared investigated the attic. The access hatch was located in the ceiling of the hallway, sealed with 6 rusted screws and a thick layer of paint. He borrowed a ladder and tried to pry it open, but the wood splintered. Something had nailed it shut from the inside. That night, Fiona heard footsteps. Not on the stairs. Above them. They called pest control. Nothing found. But the technician mentioned something strange. The temperature in the ceiling cavity was 20 degrees colder than the rest of the house. On the second voicemail, October 22, 2024, 2:11 a.m., Jared received another call, this time from his own number. He didn't answer, but a voicemail came through. The scraping sound again. And then, I left the light on so they wouldn't come back. But they don't need the dark anymore. This time, Fiona noticed something in the nursery. The ceiling nightlight, the one they never turned off, was gone. Not broken, not unplugged. Gone. The recording. They set up a camera in the hallway aimed at the attic hatch. Jared programmed it to send a notification if it detected motion. At 3:13 a.m., the alert triggered. In the footage, the attic hatch bulges downward, as though something is pressing from above. A hand appears. Not like a human hand, too long, too thin. It taps 3 times, deliberate, almost polite, and then retracts. The hatch doesn't open. But the camera flickers and suddenly the hallway lights go out. The feed cuts to black.
The truth. Jared finally demanded records from the previous owner. Reluctantly, the realtor handed over a sealed manila folder marked 7 prior incidents, 2009-2022. Inside were police reports, photos, and a name. Clara Winfield, age 9, reported missing in 2009. Last seen playing hide-and-seek with her brother. He claimed she went up into the attic, but when police searched, it was empty, except for a phone. A disconnected rotary landline, still warm to the touch. Ooh. The final voicemail. October 31st, 2024. Halloween night. Jared and Fiona had gone to stay with relatives. They left the house empty, but the phone still rang. A final voicemail. This time, the voice was clear. A little girl. It's too late now. They know you heard me. They're not in the attic anymore. The call was traced. Not from a cell tower, not even a landline. It originated inside their house, from beneath the nursery floor. Story 6. The campfire that never went out. Duh! In October 2024, a group of 4 university students from Vermont, Theo, Claire, Devin, and Rosie, went on a weekend camping trip deep in the Green Mountains, near a region called Black Hollow Ridge. The trail they followed wasn't on most maps. It had been recommended by a local store owner who warned, "Don't stay past nightfall, and if you see a fire burning that isn't yours, don't go near it." They laughed it off. After all, they were seasoned hikers. But no one expected what they would find. A campfire already burning in the clearing where they planned to set up. Duh! The fire. It was small, crackling, perfectly built, but there was no one around. No tent, no gear, no footprints. Just the fire, fed by fresh wood, glowing in the growing dusk. Theo swore it hadn't been there 20 minutes before. They had passed the same spot on their way in. Claire wanted to leave. Devin joked that they'd been gifted a free fire. Rosie, filming the trip for a vlog, took video footage of the flames. At first, they noticed something strange. The fire never dimmed, never grew, never faded, just burned, at the exact same intensity. Duh! The night. Despite Claire's hesitation, they camped nearby, reasoning that if someone showed up, they'd explain themselves. By 1 a.m., Rosie was wide awake. She heard whispering, not from the woods, from the fire. She got up, approached, and turned on her camera. Her video showed the flames dancing in strange ways, patterns, almost letters. In the background, a faint voice could be heard in the recording. "Closer now, just a little closer." Then her camera glitched out, screen distorting with strange pixelation. Rosie never remembered going back to her tent. She woke up with ash on her feet. Duh! The second night. Despite growing unease, they stayed one more night. This time, Devin went to add wood to the fire. As soon as he got close, the flames rose 5 feet high, suddenly, unnaturally. He dropped the log and backed off. The fire returned to its normal size. That's when they realized. It didn't consume wood. No embers, no blackened logs. Just endless perfect fire. Claire finally insisted they leave. They packed in silence, hiking out just before dawn. But Rosie wasn't acting right. Duh! The video. Back at campus, Rosie uploaded the footage she had taken, but one clip wouldn't process, corrupted file. She managed to extract it manually. It showed her walking into the fire. No hesitation, no pain, just stepping directly into it and disappearing. But the others knew that never happened. She was asleep in her tent the whole time. Or was she? That night, Rosie disappeared. Her dorm room was untouched, her shoes were covered in ash. And in the center of her bed, a pile of charred firewood. Still warm. Epilogue. 3 days later, Theo and Claire went back to Black Hollow Ridge with a ranger and police escort. They found the same clearing. Empty, except a fire was burning. Same size, same shape, same glow. No matter how much water they poured on it, it wouldn't go out. And in the ashes, Rosie's camera melted, except for one undamaged frame burned into the memory card. It showed all 4 of them sitting by the fire, smiling, except the photo was taken from above, as if someone or something was standing in the flames watching them. Duh! Duh! Still breathing? Then you're one of the brave. Subscribe to Bloodthirsty Forest and don't miss the next true tale that might just burn itself into your memory. Turn on that bell, watch the flames, stay away from strange fires. Story 7. The Midnight Window Knock. Duh! In November 2024, a woman named Emily Carter, a freelance graphic designer, moved into a second-floor apartment in Eldridge, Maine. The building was old, creaky floors, peeling walls, but cheap and with a great view of the woods behind. Her neighbors were few and kept to themselves. The landlord, Mr. Geller, was rarely seen. Everything was peaceful until the knocking started. It always happened at midnight. 3 soft knocks on her bedroom window, which would have been normal, except she lived on the 2nd floor and there was no balcony. Duh! Night 1. The first time it happened, Emily thought it was her imagination. She had fallen asleep at her desk, the lamp flickering beside her. At exactly 12 a.m., the room went cold. Then, tap, tap, tap. She turned toward the window, heart pounding. Nothing, just trees swaying in the distance. She brushed it off. Maybe a branch, maybe wind. Duh! Night 2. It happened again, same time, same sound. Emily snapped awake and looked immediately. Nothing. But this time she noticed something new. A faint smudge on the outside of the glass, like a handprint, too small for an adult. The window faced a drop of nearly 12 feet. No tree branch nearby. She called the landlord the next day. Geller grumbled something about squirrels and left it at that. But when she returned home that evening, something was off. Her curtains, which she always closed, were open. Duh! Night 3. This time Emily stayed up, determined to catch whatever it was. She sat in bed, phone in hand, camera app open. At 12 a.m. on the dot, it happened. Tap, tap, tap. She jumped to her feet and took a picture. Nothing in the photo, just the dark woods. But when she looked at the window, her blood ran cold. There were scratch marks, thin and deep, as if fingernails had dragged down the pane. She closed the curtains and didn't sleep. Duh! The history. The next morning, she spoke with an older tenant, Mrs. Delaney, who lived across the hall. When Emily mentioned the knocks, Mrs. Delaney paled. "You shouldn't answer it," she said. "Answer what?" Emily asked. "The knock. That's how it starts." Mrs. Delaney told her about a girl who had lived in the same apartment back in 1983, Marissa Knowles, age 19. She disappeared. The only thing left behind, her window wide open, and 3 drops of blood on the sill. Duh! Night 4. Emily blocked the window with a shelf and moved to the couch. At midnight, it knocked again. But not on the window, on the front door. 3 knocks. No one was outside. She set up a motion sensor the next night. When it went off at 12 a.m., she checked the footage. There was nothing there, just darkness. And then the footage glitched. For one frame, a face appeared in the glass, upside down, as if hanging from the roof.
The final night. Emily couldn't take it anymore. She called her brother to help her move out. But that night she stayed one last time. She locked the windows, closed the curtains, slept in the bathroom. She was almost asleep when she heard it. Not a knock, a whisper. From behind the curtain, "You should have answered." The glass shattered. She screamed and ran outside. But the street was dead quiet. When her brother arrived the next morning, he found the place empty. No sign of Emily, except the bathroom mirror. 3 words written in ash. She looked down. Story 8. Voices Beneath the Lake. In late August 2024, 3 childhood friends, Marcus, Nina, and Tyrell, planned a weekend camping trip to Lake Harrow, a remote glacial lake tucked deep in the Pacific Northwest. The lake wasn't on Google Maps, and barely mentioned in any trail books. They only found out about it through an old message board post from 2006 titled, "Places You Shouldn't Swim After Dark." They thought it was a joke. But what they experienced at Lake Harrow was not. Arrival. The lake was beautiful, glass-like water, steep cliffs, and total silence. Too silent. There were no birds, no insects. Even the wind seemed to die as they approached the shoreline. They found a flat spot to pitch their tents. As the sun dipped, Marcus noticed something odd. The lake, which had been perfectly still all day, began to ripple. But there was no wind, and the air smelled strange, like wet stone and copper. First night. They built a small fire and cooked over it. Around 11 p.m., Nina heard it first. A voice, faint and warbled. It came from the lake. A single word. Nina. She froze. So did the others. Marcus said it was probably a loon. But then they all heard it. Tyrell, Marcus. One by one. Each name perfectly clear but underwater, like a whisper echoing through a cave. They ran to the tent and zipped it shut, staying up until sunrise. When they dared to look, the lake was flat again. Day 2. They planned to leave, but their car wouldn't start. No signal. Marcus hiked back toward the nearest service road, hoping to flag someone. Nina and Tyrell stayed behind. By midday, the sun beat down harshly. The lake shimmered unnaturally, almost oily. Tyrell dared Nina to toss a stone into it. She did. The splash was normal, but then it echoed. Wrongly. The sound didn't dissipate, it repeated like a loop. The splash. Again. Again. Nina backed away, whispering, "It's mimicking us." The night call. That night they heard voices again, but not distant. From the water's edge, Nina grabbed a flashlight. The beam scanned across the shoreline. Empty, until a figure stood up from the water. Slowly. Not swimming, not walking, rising. It had no face, just smooth, pale skin and a gaping mouth that let out a perfect imitation of Marcus's voice. "Let me in, I brought help." Then another rose beside it. This one had Nina's voice. "We're still down here," Tyrell screamed. They ran. The return. Marcus returned the next morning, confused. He claimed he never made it to the road. The trail looped endlessly. Every time he thought he was getting closer, he'd come back to the same tree with the initials J+R 1978 carved into it. They packed and left on foot. 2 hours into the hike, they heard it again. From behind them, from the trees, from the air. "Come back, we're not done." Epilogue. Back in civilization, they told a park ranger. The man went pale. "You were at Harrow?" He pulled out a yellowed folder. Inside, printed pages from an old news report. 1978. 6 campers go missing at Harrow Lake. Only their tents and 1 waterproof camera were found. The film had images, blurry, waterlogged, but in one photo, a woman stood knee-deep in the lake. Her eyes wide, her mouth open. She was screaming underwater. And behind her, a hand reaching up from beneath. Story 9. The man who wasn't in the photo. In September 2024, Eric Danner, a 33-year-old software engineer from Seattle, received a group photo from a college reunion he didn't attend. It was sent to a group chat with old classmates from Whitmore University, all smiling in front of a cabin in Oregon. Eric scrolled through the image with a grin, then stopped. He was in the photo, standing at the far left, half-shadowed, wearing clothes he didn't own. He didn't remember being there. He didn't remember the picture. But it was undeniably him. The confusion. At first, Eric assumed it was a joke, Photoshop or an AI prank. He messaged the group. "Who edited me into that?" Nobody had. His friend Rachel replied, "You were there, man. You hardly talked, just stood off to the side the whole time." Another message from Kyle. "Didn't you leave early?" Eric's hands shook. He hadn't left early, he had never gone. That same weekend he had been visiting his parents in Spokane, 300 miles away. And he had receipts, photos, and phone data to prove it. The second photo. 3 days later, Rachel sent another group photo. Same cabin, different angle. This time, Eric wasn't half-shadowed. He was staring straight into the lens, eyes wide, mouth slightly open. Almost like he was trying to say something. He zoomed in. His pupils were dilated, the skin under his eyes sunken. He looked sick or scared, but no one else seemed to notice. Something's wrong. Eric couldn't sleep that night. He had a nightmare. Waking up in the middle of the woods, surrounded by trees and static. A voice whispering, "You're here, stay still." The next morning, he noticed a new file on his phone. DSIM Photos Reunion. Inside 5 pictures, he hadn't taken them. They were all from the same cabin trip. But in one photo taken from inside the cabin, someone had snapped a picture through the window. He was standing outside, smiling. The mimic. Eric began acting paranoid. He covered mirrors, blocked his webcam, deleted his social media. Then his coworkers began to notice odd things. He'd walk into a meeting room, twice, once early, once on time. In the hallway, someone greeted him, only to see him behind them seconds later. At first they laughed it off. Then one of his colleagues, Ava, confided in him. "I saw you at my building last night." Eric didn't visit her building. She showed him a grainy photo from her Ring doorbell cam. It showed Eric, or someone who looked exactly like him, standing outside her apartment at 2:03 a.m., just staring. Story 10. Whispers from the Ceiling. In October 2024, a 29-year-old substitute teacher named Daniel Reyes moved into a small upstairs unit of a duplex in Evanston, Illinois. The apartment was cheap, oddly isolated, and hadn't been rented in nearly 4 years. The landlord, Mr. Feldman, was reluctant to discuss why. "It's an old place," he said. "It creaks, that's all." But the creaking was never random, and sometimes it talked back. The first whisper. Daniel didn't notice anything strange at first. He worked long hours, often came home late, and used earbuds to block out the old building's groans. But one night, around 3:12 a.m., he woke up. No noise, just a strange feeling. As he lay in the dark, he heard it. "He's awake now," a whisper coming from above. He froze. There was no apartment upstairs, just attic space sealed off. He thought it might be the wind. Until the voice whispered again. This time his own voice. Investigation. The next day he pulled down the attic hatch. Dust fell. There was no ladder, just blackness above. He aimed his flashlight. Empty, except, in the far corner, a small tape recorder. He climbed up and pressed play. Static, then, "Daniel, Daniel, Daniel," over and over, layered on top of each other. A chorus, hundreds of versions of his voice, some normal, some screaming. He yanked out the batteries. Night 4. The whispers returned. This time it repeated things he had said hours earlier. Even personal things, thoughts, murmurs in the shower, lines from dreams. "I don't think I'm alone. I miss Mom. Don't turn around." It knew his words before he remembered saying them. One night, as he lay paralyzed by fear, it whispered something new. "You'll live here forever." The scratching. The ceiling developed scratches. From the inside. Lines carved into the plaster, symbols, names. One name appeared again and again. Reyes. Not just his last name, dozens of Reyes, all written differently. Daniel began researching. In 1987, a man named Anthony Reyes died in the same duplex. Also alone, also upstairs. Cause of death, starvation. He had locked himself in, muttering to the ceiling. In his notebook, the last line read, "It's copying me, it's learning to be me." The final night. Daniel bought a motion sensor and placed it in the attic. At 3 a.m. it went off. He climbed into the crawl space, flashlight shaking. He didn't see anything at first. Then, a face in the far corner. His own. Grinning. It rushed him. The flashlight went out. When he woke up, he was back in bed. Except the ceiling was gone. Just open space leading to a pitch-black void above. And from that void came his voice, clear and slow. "Daniel left, I'm staying now." Epilogue. Daniel was never found. The apartment remained sealed. The next tenant, a young woman named Claire, complained of voices the first week. The repairman sent to check the ceiling recorded audio for proof. What they captured? A voice whispering, "I remember you, Daniel." Then laughter. And the faint sound of a heartbeat tapping from the rafters. Voices fade, but some stay long after you're gone. Thanks for joining us for 10 Scariest True Stories of 2024. Subscribe to Bloodthirsty Forest for more nightmares you'll wish you could forget. Turn on the bell and never trust the silence above you.